Welcome. This is Amanda Nash with the Reby Homes team at Realty One Group, and I am joined today by Dr. Natalya Borakowski. She is a licensed naturopath medical doctor. She graduated from the Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine right here in Tempe, Arizona. She is a Sun Devil. She went to Arizona State University, where she graduated with a bachelor's degree in biology and genetics. So she's here today to talk with us about how to stay healthy during the pandemic and with social isolation. Natalya, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Amanda. It's great to be here. Well, thank you for a wonderful intro. I am a licensed naturopathic physician in the state of Arizona. We are talking how to stay healthy during today's pandemic and specifically during the social isolation. So this is the topic we're going to cover. I figured that many of us really know what kind of viruses, pathogen we are facing. We got very educated how to protect ourselves from getting any sort of disease. We know how to maintain our social isolation. We know wash our hands and so on and so on. So I got really thought in what is so important for us and what other aspects of the body is we need to be aware of as we trying to maintain our health during the social isolation situation. I figured that many of my colleagues, many of my patients been calling me just to talk. And for a while, I was really puzzled by it because a lot of times people call, they don't necessarily ask specific questions. They just want sort of reassurance. And it occurred to me that during social isolation, since we humans are such as social creatures, all experiencing this really strange ups and downs and different moods. So today, my talk is actually about our mental health and about our nervous system. To me, as a naturopathic physician, I like treating the entire patient. I don't focus on one body system or another. So I don't just independently focus on the immune system or respiratory system when I'm thinking about protecting body from any kind of virus, either COVID-19 or any other pathogen. So to me, the mental health and the nervous system just as essential as the immune system to maintain health of the body. So I split my presentation into two parts. The first part is sort of scaring my patients, not necessarily to making you afraid of what's going on, but to bring you awareness, how those negative emotions and the things that might be running through your head can negatively impact your immune system and can potentially put you in a dangerous situation to contract the virus, or if you got the virus in the first place, worsen your symptoms and perhaps linger the time when you can recover from any kind of disease. And the second part of the presentation, we'll talk about the steps you can take to support the health of your mental health and your nervous system health as well. So overall, nervous system is a very complex subject. And if I get into all the nitty-gritty details, it's going to be such a long and boring presentation. So I wanted to simplify just for the point of this topic specifically. So there's two things I want to focus on. One is the central nervous system, which is your brain and your spine. And specifically in your brain, when you think about the brain, we're thinking about our cerebral cortex, sort of like an out layer of your brain. That's part of the brain that you think with. That's part of the brain that makes your muscles move, make you feel. This is kind of our main core, if you will. But below the cerebral cortex, we have this really interesting part of the brain that we also call reptilian brain. This is kind of our primal brain. We inherited from our ancestors, monkeys, or other species. And this part of the brain, it's also called limbic system in scientific terms. It's responsible for your primal instincts. And specifically, why it's important to today's topic is limbic system is responsible or ran by fear. Every time you turn on the TV or you read negative news, we always have that wave of anxiety. We always have this wave of uncertainty. And when your body, your brain gets overrun by fear, that limbic system tends to overrun your cerebral cortex. And what's mostly important is the prefrontal cortex, this part of the brain that goes right there in the front of your forehead. This part of the brain, it's one of the last to develop in a child. It's actually develops by the age of 25. And that prefrontal cortex, that's what makes us normal, responsible, functioning adults. It's responsible for executive functions, responsible for logic, for making clear decisions. Why it's important? Because if your limbic system running on fear, it overrides your prefrontal cortex. In simple terms, if you're scared, if all you're thinking about, oh my goodness, what's going to happen tomorrow? And if I'm going to die, if my family is going to die, or whatever other negative emotions that bringing up this fear in your heart, you cannot possibly think clearly. You cannot make a good decisions for yourself, your family, your home, your business. It's very important for us small business owners, because you in this time of uncertainty still need to have a clear head and make sure you're making good steps to prepare yourself or your business for the time when you're ready to reopen. So it doesn't mean that the fear is bad. Fear is good. That's what makes us survive as species, because it's good to be aware of danger. But to allow yourself to be overcome by fear, it's very detrimental to your clear thinking, to that prefrontal cortex. The second part of the nervous system I want to talk about is adrenal gland. It's a small little gland that's located right above your kidneys. It makes many different hormones, but specifically it makes this steroid hormone called cortisol. And many of us probably heard about cortisol before. A lot of people think when they hear about cortisol, they always think about high cortisol and how bad it is to have a high cortisol, which is true in sense. And when you are very stressed out, like in this moment of social isolation, moment of uncertainty, lots of negative news, most of us probably experiencing this very, very high cortisol spikes. In the high levels, chronic high levels of cortisol is detrimental to the body. Like, for example, what cortisol does, it increases your blood pressure. So for any of us who are above age of 40, high levels or prolonged levels of high cortisol is really bad for cardiovascular disease, because it can put you at risk for heart attack, hypertension, and all these other cardiovascular diseases. Another thing about cortisol, it increases level of glucose or sugar in your blood. And all of us know that high levels of sugar are not good. This is when the metabolic diseases, diabetes come to play. And even if you don't drink or eat a lot of sugar, your cortisol make your blood sugar come up anyway. This is one of the things that cortisol does. It's part of the survival mechanism, because think, if you need to run away from a tiger or a bear, you need that excess sugar so you can go to the muscles, give you that energy so you can run away as fast as possible. But if you're in a chronic state of stress and you're really not burning any calories, because for us, all of us in social isolation, what do? A lot of times we sit in front of the computer, we're listening to all this terrible bad news, we're stressed out about it, and we're not moving. So the sugar stays in your blood, and it's very inflammatory to everything else in your body. It's inflammatory to your blood vessels, to your nervous system, many, many other things. And the other downfall of cortisol, it's anti-inflammatory. I just speak about how sugar makes the inflammation, and cortisol actually suppresses inflammation. Why is it bad? Because you think like, oh, well, if there's too much inflammation, we want to suppress the inflammation. It's good and bad at the same time, because your immune system needs inflammation in order to fight the disease. So if you are in this very high stress, you have inflammation caused by the sugar, which is not the good inflammation immune system needs. And then there's also cortisol, which is suppresses function of the immune system because it's anti-inflammatory to specifically immune system. Then guess what? If somebody sneezes on you, you're very likely to get sick at this moment. So I hope all of this kind of brought you into realization that it's good to calm down. But also I want to make a point that cortisol overall is not a bad guy. We do need cortisol at high levels in the morning because it's our natural sort of a cup of coffee. That's what wakes us up in the morning. Without cortisol in the morning, You're going to be dragging your feet. You would not be able to start your day. You'll need a gallon of coffee before you can even function. On either way, it's terrible to have a gallon of coffee. I'm not trying to say you should. And for a lot of people who are experiencing this chronic levels of high cortisol, body starts to do really funky things. It creates the flip cortisol curve. Because a normal healthy person, the cortisol is high in the morning, it wakes you up, then it levels down very quickly in the afternoon, and it's pretty much non-existent at night. And at night, different hormone called melatonin, which many of you probably heard of. We take melatonin supplements, we can't sleep. So melatonin is secreted when your brain recognizes it's dark outside. So those two hormones, melatonin and cortisol, that's what creates this wake and sleep cycle. Why, when we are stressed out, a lot of times we lose our sleep? Because first, those hormones don't function properly. So the next slide here, I wanted to talk about the healthy sleep and wake cycle. One of the first recommendations I give to all my patients who is right now experiencing the stay-at-home social isolation conditions, stick to your schedule. If you, when you used to go to the office, used to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, don't allow yourself to sleep past 7. Try to stick to the same schedule. Wake up at the same time, 6 or 7. This is good for your circadian rhythm. It's good for that normal cortisol function in the morning. Same thing about going to bed. If you used to go to bed at 9, 10 o'clock at night, make sure you stick to the same. I know it's really easy when you stay at home because your schedule is so much more flexible. You can wake up late, you can go to bed late, but overall it's very detrimental to your nervous system. It's really bad for your normal cortisol function. So regular sleep-wake cycle is important. And it brings me to the second topic here is limit the blue screen exposure. Why the blue screens are so bad? Because your body does not understand difference between UV rays, which is produced by sun rays, like by sunshine, and the difference between blue light. Your body still sees it as a light. So when it's dark and you're sitting there in the front of a computer or telephone or television, you're looking at this blue light directly suppresses your melatonin production. So I always urge people to shut off all your devices at least an hour before bed. Have a nice hot cup of tea or take a long bath. If you can't fall asleep, listen to some quiet music, meditate, anything to help yourself to wind down. Create sort of like a bedtime rituals to help that normal melatonin production and suppression of cortisol at night. Well-timed meals, especially balanced nutrition, is really important. For naturopathic physicians, or for me specifically, I hate recommending people supplements because first, I hate swallowing pills myself, and I don't want my clients to swallow a handful of pills every day. I like them to get their nutrients from food. So every nutrient-dense food comes from fruit and vegetables, colorful fruit and vegetables. And if you putting yourself on a good wake and sleep schedule, you should be on a meal schedule as well. All of us who've had small children or maybe still raising small children know one of the first things pediatrician recommends to a young parent is to put your child on a schedule. Why? Because it balances your nervous system. It relaxes your body. It promotes the proper digestion. Our body loves schedule. When we go to work, we tend to stick to the same rituals in the morning. We brush our teeth at the same time. We take same routes to go to work. We all have our little routine. Right now, it's pretty much nobody has any routine because we're at home. This is a new environment. It's a new exposure. And that's what kind of throws the whole body off the whack. And you start experiencing different things because your body secretes hormones you typically don't secrete. So you're going through this emotional roller coasters as one day you might feel stressed out. The other day you feel happy. The next day you feel depressed. And I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. It still might. And it's okay to go through emotional roller coaster. However, if you do the small, simple steps as putting yourself on the schedule, eating at the regular times, eating good balanced nutrition, you're going to help your body to fight the stress and this emotional roller coaster and deal with it much better. I cannot stress enough the importance of going outside and getting fresh air. I will go back to the topic of being outside when we talk about our immune system. But overall, speaking of rituals, like for example, for myself, I created the ritual that I have alarm on my Fitbit every hour, about 10 minutes before end of the hour. I get alerted that it's time for me to start moving. So I get off my butt, I get off the computer, I go outside in the backyard and I do things like jumping jacks or just run around or just sometimes walk and, look at the beautiful flowers. Arizona is still blooming. I know it's going to get hotter. It's going to be harder to go outside. But when we still have a great weather, go ahead and enjoy it. And regular movement is one of the most essential things you can do for your body. When you don't move, everything in your body stagnates. Your blood does not circulate as fast as it should. And if your blood doesn't move, your lymph doesn't move. And lymph carries all the immune cells throughout the tissue. So when the immune cells not moving around, the bad guys like bacteria or viruses that you might inhale, and you will, because we're all exposed to bacteria and different pathogens every single moment of our life. So if you inhale those and your immune system is not moving around to get rid of it, guess what? You'll get sick. Either you're wearing face mask. If you don't wear face mask, one of the best things you can do is to move, support your immune system by good nutrition, and put yourself on a schedule so you go to sleep and eat at the same time every day. So here's a little exercise I wanted to teach my clients, and I teach it to everybody who experiencing anxiety or maybe even panic attacks once in a while. And this is a very simple yoga exercise called Nadi Shodhana, alternative nasal breathing. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna plug one of our nostrils at a time, and we're gonna breathe through one nostril. I want you to use your ring finger and to your thumb on your right hand. If you're left-handed, you can obviously switch, but I'm right-handed. So we're gonna use a ring finger on the right hand to plug the left nostril, and then we're gonna alternate and plug the right nostril with a thumb. So we're starting off with a ring finger, and I want you to take a deep breath on the count to 4, then hold your breath to the count of 4 on top of your lungs, just filling up your lungs fully with the air, and hold it to the count of 4. And then you exhale slowly to the count of 4 through the same right nostril. And then we're gonna hold our lungs empty to the count of 4 again. I tend to breathe really slowly. So if I'm going too slow, you can certainly speed up. I don't want to stress your body and feel like you're suffocating when you're doing this exercise. So definitely do it at your own pace. And count to 4 is just a suggestion. For some people, it might be 3. For some people, it might be 5. So just kind of go as you need to. So once we finish the first cycle with a clogged left nostril, we're going to switch to the right, and we're going to repeat the cycle again. Breathe in to the count of 4, hold to the count of 4, breathe out to the count of 4, and then hold your lungs empty to the count of 4. We can do this all together, and I urge you to do this small little breathing meditation at least 3-4 minutes every day. And you can do it either first thing in the morning. I like to do it in the morning. It's like before I drink my coffee, I go outside when it's still nice and cool and listen to the birds, listen to the nature, wake up. And you kind of ground yourself when you clear your mind before you jump into the stress and all those little busy things you do every day. So let's start our exercise. Starting with a ring finger, left nostril, we breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, breathe out. 2, 3, 4, hold your lungs empty. 2, 3, 4, switch to your thumb. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, breathe out. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, and we switch again. So this is a very simple exercise. I have to say, in my own experience, I worked with patients who experienced horrific traumas in their life, social abuse, and people who are recovering drug addicts. And this exercise is amazing what they can do. It turns off the stress response, which is sympathetic nervous system, and it turns on your parasympathetic nervous system, which calms your body, slows down your heart rate, helps you to think more clearly, It promotes your normal digestion. So doing this, like I said, the first thing in the morning before you even have a breakfast will help you to absorb your breakfast better and get more nutrients from the food you eat. Here I put very short list of nutrients that can support your adrenal function. And in this big bold red letters, I said this is not by any means a complete list or sort of universal prescription. Again, I will say I hate prescribing supplements to patients. So I only supplement people when I know they're either experiencing some sort of disease state or there is significant nutritional deficiency. Otherwise, I highly recommend getting your nutrients from food. So start off with vitamin C. Vitamin C, most of us will take it to support the immune system, and it is very wonderful, powerful antioxidant. Why antioxidants important for the body? Every time you take a breath, you obviously get oxygen into your system, and oxygen is needed for life. We cannot live without oxygen. We all know it. However, oxygen is, interestingly enough, also oxidizes us from inside out. So every time you breathe in, your body releases free radicals just from the process of using the oxygen for the production of energy. So there's something we cannot live without, such as oxygen, that ultimately makes us age and oxidize and die. It's sort of like, apple, when you cut it and it browns, same thing happens in our bodies inside out. So what our body does, so we don't fall apart as quick as the apple exposed to the air, it uses antioxidants such as vitamin C, also vitamin E, selenium, beta carotene. All those things are example of antioxidants. Vitamin C supplementation, why is it so important? Because our body does not make it. Most of the animals able to make their own vitamin C, we cannot. So vitamin C mainly comes from fruits and vegetables. Besides of vitamin C, like for example, bell pepper, one of the most wonderful sources of vitamin C, has more vitamin C than orange or other citrus fruits do. So what's so great about bell pepper? The bell pepper, it's also very colorful. And every plant that has a colorful flesh, it produces its additional antioxidants. So it's beyond vitamin C, like a yellow color, for example, xanthines, or purple color, anthocyanins. So all those chemical constituents plant produces for itself to preserve its life and to allow plant to live longer. So when we eat it as humans, which we cannot make those constituents, we are prolonging our own life. So eating colorful vegetables, not just getting your vitamin C, but all these other wonderful colorful constituents, which making you more resistant to disease and to the aging process in general. So when it comes to supplementing with vitamin C, if you're a healthy person and you just want to support your health, just getting it from food is enough. When we are in a state when we're worrying about contracting a disease like COVID-19 right now, I recommend supplementing for at least 1 gram of vitamin C per day, which is higher amount than you can possibly get from food. Even if you eat like a pound of bell pepper, you cannot get enough vitamin C from this. So you can start supplementing with it. However, if you take too much vitamin C in the form of a supplement or ascorbic acid, it can irritate your stomach and ultimately can cause diarrhea. It's not deadly, it's not painful, but it's uncomfortable. Nobody likes to have a diarrhea. So you can either take vitamin C in a liposomal form, which bypasses the digestion, or you can do vitamin C IVs. And you probably heard right now a lot of clinics that treat COVID-19 patients, they actually giving them high dose vitamin C, which helps them to recover faster. So vitamin C is a really wonderful nutrient. And I already mentioned among with the vitamin C, there's other antioxidant helpers such as vitamin E, selenium, beta carotene. Beta carotene, it's the orange vitamin A that comes from plants like carrots, mango will be a good example. Other nutrients that I really like recommending my patients is B vitamins. Specifically for adrenal gland, vitamin B5, it's really needed in very high quantities because it helps to support production of hormone cortisol. And we already established that we do need cortisol in the morning to wake up. It's needed for our body to function. but we don't like this high sustained level of cortisol due to stress. So we just need to calm ourselves down and make sure we have the proper cortisol curve. Another important vitamin is B6. This vitamin, it's more of a coenzyme, so it's sort of a helper, and it helps many biochemical reactions in your body and also for biochemical reaction in your gland. Overall, when I recommend to take B vitamins as a supplement, I usually like giving it as a B complex because the complex will also have a vitamin B12. And many of us, as we start to age and our digestion is not that great, or maybe people who have been vegan or still don't consume any animal meat, they are B12 deficient. And B12, it's the vitamin that gives you energy. Why? Because it's directly involved into production of DNA. And you know, without DNA, you cannot really go far. Your cells don't multiply with it. So besides of B vitamins, one of my favorite nutrients and I love supplementing with it myself every night, it's magnesium. Magnesium is required for every cellular energy production. So every time you need to absorb something, process something, or get any junk or garbage out of the cell, you use energy. Magnesium is specifically needed for that machinery to function. But the reason why I take magnesium, it's also smooth muscle relaxer. So what it means, when you are stressed out at the end of the day, or maybe your stomach is in cramps because you had a really tough day, you had a very upsetting phone call with a boss, to take a little bit of magnesium at night helps you to kind of bring it down a notch. It also relaxes smooth muscle, which is make your stomach, your digestive tract operate. And that helps you with absorbing and processing your food better. It also helps to lower blood pressure, speaking of which, because we just talked about cortisol increasing your blood pressure. So supplementing with magnesium potentially can lower blood pressure, unless it's like really, really high and you need medications, but it's a different story. This slide here is very similar to the slide when we talked about cortisol and supporting the healthy cortisol production. This is to support healthy immune system. And you can see, again, one of the first things I talk about, to stick to your daily routine. It's good for everything. It's good for your digestion, your peace of mind, your nervous system, your cortisol production. So write yourself a schedule. Get you back on the same routine you had before this isolation. Go outside. One of the wonderful things about being in the sunshine, when we are outside, our skin absorbs sun ray and produces vitamin D. Vitamin D, it's not really a vitamin. A lot of naturopathic physicians believe it's sort of a hormone because it's responsible for so many different functions in your body. For our talk specifically, it's responsible or helps your immune system to function better. So people who are vitamin D deficient, a lot of times experiencing autoimmune disease or any other chronic inflammatory diseases. And even though we live in a sunny state, I have to say majority of my patients are deficient. So go outside, get yourself some sunshine. To get the optimal levels of vitamin D, you have to be outside for 15-20 minutes without sunblock. And I have to say, it breaks my heart to say it because, you know, I am all about the healthy skin and sun damage and all those things. But to get a little bit of a sun exposure without sunblock, it's essential for your vitamin D production. Don't go outside for an hour because you will get sunburn and then you will have to come to me to deal with skin cancer. But again, it's a different topic. There's one instant technique or tradition I want to talk about. It's called grounding or dew threading. A lot of naturopathic physicians are big proponents of this, and it's very, very simple. When you go outside, just find a little piece of grass or dirt. Just make sure it's not rocks. It's not doesn't have any rubber associated with it because rubber will block this negative ions you're getting from the earth. So once you found that piece of dirt, stand on it barefoot. You don't have to walk on it if you don't want. If you can, it's even better. But if you just stand on it, the earth releases negative ions, which is really cleansing and energetic for your body. I love doing it first thing in the morning when grass is still cold. It might be a little wet from the sprinklers, and you just walk on it. It wakes your body up. It feels amazing. It's very cleansing. cleansing spiritually, emotionally, and physically. It's cleansing as well. I know it kind of sounds a little bit like a magic, but trust me, our ancestors have been doing it for many, many years. And it's a wonderful way, again, to help you to calm down in the morning. And it also supports your immune system because it supports detoxification processes in your body. We did talk about the daily exercise, the importance of daily exercise, because it moves the blood and lymph, which allows the immune system to circulate and allows the immune system to find and kill bad bugs, bacteria, or any other things you might be exposed to throughout the day. We already talked about the sugar being inflammatory. So when you're already stressed out, you have a high level of cortisol, which pushes your blood sugar levels higher. If you eat sugar with it, it's just a recipe for disaster. So when we are stressed out, we tend to crave sugar. That's how you know your cortisol levels might be high, because you'll be craving that Snickers bar or Diet Coke or whatever, something sugary. Best thing I recommend, if you really dying for something sweet, eat piece of fruit. It might curb your sweet tooth a little bit, or just drink some water. The water is wonderful because it helps us to flush toxins. We all tend to be dehydrated in Arizona, but it might just curb that little sweet tooth and just limit the sugar as much as you can. Also, highly encourage you to skip alcohol. And I know when you're stuck at home, the happy hour tends to come early. I personally love drinking my wine, and I'm not trying to be a party pooper and tell you don't drink at all, but just don't do it every single day. Why is it important? Because when you drink alcohol, if you ever wore a device like a Fitbit or any other heart rate monitoring device during sleep, you will notice when you drink alcohol, your heart rate will be faster when you sleep than when you don't drink alcohol. When your heart rate is lower, you go into a deeper state of sleep. And when you have a deep state of sleep, that's when your body repairs. That's when you building your stronger immune system. That's you protecting your body from anything else you might be facing the next day. So skipping alcohol maybe every other night, it's really beneficial for your overall health. And last point I wanted to mention, if you're going through those emotional roller coasters, you're experiencing anxiety or depression or any other negative emotions, just reach out for help. Call a friend, call a physician, talk to somebody. You're not in this alone, because we all going through the same roller coasters. And I am there. I'm all listening ears. My doors of my clinic is closed due to our governor orders. However, my heart is open and I'm still doing telemedicine appointments. So I'm more than happy to talk to my patients and just to hear you out and bring you back into the state of peace. I wanted to touch base really quickly about naturopathic medicine in general. Most people in the state of Arizona are very familiar with this type of medicine. There's a lot of naturopathic doctors here, but if you never heard of it, we sort of the same but very different from traditional doctors. One of the big things that separates us is we treating the whole body. And I mentioned this concept in the beginning of my presentation. We don't focus on one system. So if we have a patient coming in and talking about, I don't know, upset stomach, for example, we're not just going to be looking at GI, the gastrointestinal tract. We will look at your nervous system, measure your stress level. We'll look at your nutrition. We'll look at your hormones level, because everything can influence one system. Even if the symptom develops in one system of your body, the entire body is involved of creating the system. So treating the whole body ultimately leads to a cure of disease, not just the management of disease. And that's the goal we all looking for. Also, naturopathic physicians use the synergy of multiple disciplines. So we train to not just using pharmaceutical agents like the traditional doctors. We use botanical medicine, we use Chinese medicine, we use our homeopathy. So there's a different things we can reach into. So our toolbox is really large. And it brings me to the third point here is the reverse therapeutic order. So what that means, for traditional doctors, when you go with whatever disease or a regular checkup, the first thing they pull out is the prescription pad. We do prescribe medicines when they are necessary, but for us, it's one of the last resorts. So for therapeutic order, it's one of those things that we kind of look to down the road. we first will look for foundations for health. So we always start with a lifestyle medicine. We look into what things you might not be doing right, the things that we just talked about, sleeping well, or eating proper diet, or exercising regularly, and so on. All those things that actually harder to change than to swallow a pill, but ultimately that's what brings the best outcomes for the patient. So we do work with every patient. I have to say, me personally, I'm very patient and I allow people little breaks. I'm not going to tell you have to eat kale for the rest of your life and never drink wine again. I understand we're all humans and we all need little breaks. However, I'm still going to coach you and help you to be at your best self. And overall, for naturopathic doctors, our appointment types are much longer. So we don't spend 7 15-minute increments with our patients. Our typical new patient intake, it's at least hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. This is my contact information. So my office is located on Cheyenne 101. This is the office phone number, so feel free to call. We typically open Monday through Friday, 9 till 6. And my email is below, drborakowski@gmail.com. I respond to my emails very promptly. So reach out, ask questions, and I'll be happy to assist.